Okay, last lecture, and this will be brief, but what I wanted to show you today in Dreamweaver is how to add keywords in a description, and they're usually added to your home page. They can be added to any page, but what they do is they aid in search. So when people use Google as an example for as a search engine, it looks for the keywords. And then when it finds your site, the description is what comes up in that search engine that tells you about the website. And I used the example the other day, my own website, when let me go ahead and open up a browser. And let's do a search. And I'll go ahead and type in Kirk Miller. That's the key. Those are the keywords. Lots of Kirk Millers pop up, and I happen to be, I know, on the second page, I think. Here it is, Kirk Miller's blog, aka Kmart 66. And this is the description that I have in there. This weblog is an educational mashup for the student who wants to know more about art, design, and the digital world in which we live. Okay? So clearly a lot of people have the word Kirk Miller. The only way you can boost that to the top of the heap oftentimes is you have to pay, and that will drive it up. You know, push it to the first page, and at the top of the first page, then you're paying for that service. So how you do that? Oh, let me show you one more from my other website. If I go to home, I want to .earthlink.net /tilde Kmart 66. Okay, and we go to view source. When you look at the top, you'll notice that we see here, this is the title of the page. So here's Kirk Miller, aka Kmart. And then we look down here, it says metadata or meta name, keywords in quotes. Content, Kirk Miller, Kirk B. Miller, Kirk Brian Miller, Kirk Miller art, art, conceptual art, fine art. These are all the keywords that I put in there. And they're all separated by commas. And then there's the meta name equal description, and you'll say this is Kirk Miller's, aka Kmart website. So if you were to go to this one, this is what comes up. I'm a post-conceptual artist and teach computer graphics at Cerritos College in Norwalk, California. The other website that I have has similar content that you saw. So these are at the head of the page, and this is the first thing that the search engines look for. Okay, so to get to that, let's hide this, and let's go back to Dreamweaver. And again, like a lot of these things, it's a matter of finding it. It's very easy to do, but where do they, and it's really buried deep in here. But this is where you find it. You go under Insert, and oh shoot, I just did it yesterday and I've already forgotten. You go down to HTML. You want to insert HTML, and it goes down to head tags, and you'll see that we have keywords and description. Everybody see that? Insert HTML, head tags, keywords, and description are the two that we want. So we'll start with keywords, and it just brings this up. Before I do that, though, let's switch to split view so you can see at the top of our page what is here. Okay. Just says this is document type, HTML, it's public, da-da-da-da-da. This is all the kind of boilerplate. Okay. And I have written here home page. You would probably want to write something a little different for your first page, you know, your website or whatever, because that will come up. So let me go back, and I want to show you where this will be inserted. So again, we'll go back to Insert, HTML, head tags, keywords. So in this case, it will be Lauren Miller. It will be, another one might be Lauren Annalise Miller. Her nickname is Ello. Ello. Another one might be, she calls herself Geeky Ello. Could be student, you know, whatever you think are the principal categories. And then you click OK. And now we'll notice, you'll see, it just added right here. Now, it should be higher than that. So I'm going to deselect this right now. I'm going to undo. And I want to put this much higher. Why it put it down there, I'm not sure. I think it would be better if under the head and the title, okay, that we, right after here, that we put it here. And actually, you know what, I'm going to go back and look at my own page for a minute. I'm going to go back to this, and I'm going to go back to View, Page Source, and under Title, yeah, there's the title in brackets, and then meta, content, and then it is keywords. This is where I want it, near the top. So right after the content type, content equals text / HTML, character set, da-da-da-da-da, I want the meta name. So it might be best if I come back under here, rather than leaving that, I want it to be inserted right here. Okay, not scripts. Maybe it does have to be after there. We'll see. I think this is okay. Let me go back. I'm going to look at this one more time and make sure. Because I know where I put it before works very nicely. Yeah, it's before my style sheets, so that is where I want it. Okay, so I don't want it after here, I want it up here, right after the title. So here it is here. There's the cursor. You'll notice it's right, you know, in a line right after these brackets. Okay, so we'll go back again to and let's make sure that it puts it there. Insert HTML, and we'll go back and we'll put in head tags, keywords. And I'll do the same thing. Lauren Miller. Lauren Miller. You know, any kind of name or combination of names that you think would go in there. And that ought to do it. Put it right there. And there it goes, right there. That's where I want it to be, near the top. Right after the the meta tag for the content type and the title, especially right after the page title. No. What's that? It tells the browser that the text is going to be HTML and that sort of thing. That's part of, you guys have had HTML, that's all it does, right? It sets it up for that, for the browser. Mm-hmm. So now I'll go ahead and I'll add the description. You want that right after the keywords. So go back to Insert, and we'll go back again to HTML, head tags, and now we'll add the description. Again, this is Lauren Miller's personal website intended for family and friends, period. Because that's what would show up. Click OK, and there you go. There's a description that's afterwards. Okay, that's all there is to it. But you do want it near the top. You don't want to click it down below and insert it. You want it at the tippy top. And you can see what works here. Same thing here, that right after the meta HTTP equivalent content type, content text, HTML, character set, same sort of thing. Then I have the meta name, keywords, and the other, the description. Let me try, I'm curious, because I'm going to go to Kmart. Maybe it was 66.typepad. I'm curious. I haven't looked at this before. Typepad.com. I'm not even sure. Shoot. Let me log into my Typepad account. I'm going to go ahead and sign in, and it's Kmart 66 at earthlink.net. I'll go ahead and log in. And I want to go ahead and view site. There it is. It's kirkmeadmiller.typepad.com. So this is the site. Now let's do the same thing. Let's go to View. And I want to say View Source. And we'll see right in here, underneath the head. Okay. Well, it is the head, but under the same place. Meta, content, da-da-da, meta name, generator. They have some other stuff. And then right after that, meta name, keywords, content, education, computers, graphics, art, multimedia, and then description. This weblog is an educational, I forget what else, because I don't understand. Maybe it's because, oh, it's for quotes. It's and quote, because I had quotes. That's the HTML that is put in for you. Mashup for the student who wants to know more about art design, and that was what we saw in the search as a result of the search. Okay. I should probably, and I haven't, I should go back in there and I should change. I had just these as keywords, and I should have my own name as a keyword in there, and it might come up higher in the, rather than page 2, this Kirk Miller's blog, it might come up on page 1. But something else I noticed too after I did this blog and wanted everybody to go here first, that as soon as I added these, put these ads in here, Google ads, that they dropped it way down below. Because anytime people click on these and they go to a site, you supposedly it generates income for you. I haven't gotten penny one. Huh? What's that? Yeah. But I haven't, and it's not a big deal, but I thought, well, what the hey, you know. Because that wasn't the intended purpose, but I just thought it was more interesting because for a while there, just by having students go here, I was getting pretty high on the list because a lot of it is due, you know, how high up you are is also determined by how many searches there are for you. That will drive that up as well. And it was getting pretty high because every semester, just like you, I'm telling you to go to this week in class and telling you to go this here, go there, to make sure that you know what's going on in class. But then as soon as I added that to the side, it dropped. Okay, I'm wondering if I should take it out. It's not that big a deal. Okay, so those are keywords, and that's what keyword means, because that's when you look at the search engine here, that's what it's doing. That's what it's doing. Now, if I were to type in education, or I were to type in one of those others, there's probably a gazillion others that have those keywords. So I don't think it would come up as quickly as Kirk Miller. But this is also what comes up. This is the page's title. That's why when I type in Kirk Miller, okay, again, it doesn't come up here right away, but if I look at the second page, what does come up is Kirk Miller's blog, aka kmart66.com. That's the title of the page. So that is also important too. Okay, that's your page title. And everybody knows how to change the page title, right? We go back, it's right here, page title. So if you just put home page, it's not very descriptive. If it's the name of your company, if you say home page of so-and-so products or so-and-so design, and that's what people are probably going to type in when they do a search, then it will drive it up considerably. You know, I mean, when I say drive it up, I mean bring it to the top of the search. The more specific the search is, the higher it typically will be, you know, because it will find fewer things related to that. Because if I were to do a search, for example, for Kmart 66, I believe I come right up to the top, because not many people know to put that in. There you go. See how it comes to the top of that search? That's how specific it is. And all the other things that I have too. Since I have a MySpace, a YouTube channel, I was trying to do live videos with Ustream TV. So, I mean, these are all of mine right here. Now, I don't know about this. Maybe it's another, I don't know, maybe it's in other languages, because I'm in South Pasadena, so who knows? Latino website, wow, okay, MySpace, didn't know about that. Okay, but you know, the more specific, it's just like searching any address. If you say, I'm searching a particular town, and you say it's Springfield. Oh my God! In the United States, there's Springfields in every state. That doesn't help you. But then when you say Springfield, Illinois, boom, you're getting really close. And then if you have a street address within that, and you have a number on that street, then your search is more specific, and it's more narrow, and that's going to come to the top. But again, you need those elements in your page, whether it be in the title, whether it be in the keywords, whether it be in the description isn't important. The description is only what's going to show up once it finds it. You know, then that's what, this is the description right here. And this is important because I'm sure many of you have done Google searches, and you're looking for something specific, and you're kind of hunting around, and you're typing in a general category, and you're looking at all the descriptions thinking, is this what I want? Is that what I want? And then you're clicking randomly. And that description could be very helpful to the end user, knowing whether or not this is the site that they're looking for. Okay. So these are, you know, from the other day doing pop-ups and things like that. These are little added things that you might want to do. And clearly it thinks that this is a this is a misspelling, because it knows Kmart the store, and that's the thing. If you're just put in Kmart, you know, I'm not going to come up anywhere. It's the store. I can't imagine I'd be anywhere near here. Too many other stuff, you know, other sites and related articles and things like that that are going to come up. You find that helpful? That should be all there is to it. Should be. There are a couple of other things maybe I could point out too. Let me think here. Another thing that we can do is there are ways of checking and generating reports and sort of troubleshooting. So one of the things that you can do under site, and it's under part of site management here, is that we have some different kinds of reports that we can generate for the current document, or it could be the current, the entire site, or selected files on the site, or maybe the whole root folder. Okay, so you have those choices. The important one that I want to address is accessibility. So that this will be a little confusing and frustrating when you check it, because you're going to find a gazillion things wrongs with your website because it's really nitpicky. That on every page, if you haven't added an alt tag for everything, if you haven't done, everything that used to be called, what was it called? Bobby compliant, which now it's called something else, which means that it's compliant for people with disabilities. They're very, very picky. And so if you want it to be 100% compliant, you're going to get back this report with all of these things wrong, a whole bunch of things. And it usually relates to having alt tags. That's one of the biggest things, that everything, like photographs, like flash files, like any number of things have alt tags assigned to them. It could be incompatibility with colors or something like that. Who knows? A whole slew of things that are hard to think about when you're putting stuff together. And to be quite honest, the safest website is, unfortunately, just a simple text website. That will be 100% Bobby compliant. But that is an important one right there. So it could be, you can do it document or page by page, and that would be the safest way to do it, to try to narrow it down and address it one page at a time. If you do it for the entire website, it can be really frustrating because there would be such a long list of things that you're going to have to correct. It will be, frustrating.
Some websites have that little icon on the bottom of them that have the W3C.
That might mean that it is compliant. Okay. I'm not, in many ways, I don't worry about it. I'm supposed to. Any website I have that's associated with a college, because they're fearful of being sued. But I figure because I'm dealing in a visual medium that people have to have sight in order to do what we're doing. So I figure if anybody comes in here who is blind, they're going to have a hard time designing. So I don't deal with it. If somebody wants to see my website and has a problem, then many times I try to address it and say, if you need more information, please contact me and we'll make sure that you have it. It's like all the videos that I post. I don't have subtitles. What if the person, and that could very well be, I've had students in here who are deaf. When I lecture, they have an interpreter for them. And if they want access to those, then I have to have the subtitles, and I have to go through that. So, and I'm willing to do that, but it's a lot of work, and it's not something I do. I have to hand it over to someone, and it's going to be weeks before they get it. So the college's approach to it is, well, then you just don't do it. And I figure, well, all of you lose out for one person. That's not fair. And if it were a hybrid, if it were an online class, I could understand that you need that. Everybody needs that. But then, okay, then you need to be here. And this is just an ancillary tool anyway. It's not meant to take the place of the live lectures. It's meant to help you and help review, or in the event that you have missed class, that you have access to everything that I've covered. Okay. Then, again, you can check links site-wide to make sure that they work. There are a variety of things that you can do.
How do you do that one?
Just select it and it's going to go through it, and it's going to check all of these. And it's going to check links to files not found on local disk. And it's going to say these are all broken links. It's looking in all of, because I had it, okay, remember when I did the really quickie Photoshop thing, and I showed you that you could design, if you know Photoshop, you can design an entire website. That's really not the focus of this class, but you can do that. These are all related to that because I deleted that. So it's looking at my site and it's saying I don't see any pages, any viable links for these pages. So that's broken. That's what all of these are. If I remove those pages, this home page and those links that were associated with that page from that, then it won't be a problem. That's why that's showing up. If I go back and let's, here, let me close the report. Let's open another page. I've got to hunt around here for a minute to find, let's go back here. Let's go back to files. Let's look at here. Let's open the About page, because this is much simpler, okay? Now if I do the same thing, I only have 4 links on here. Maybe I have one more, I don't know, but it shouldn't be a problem. So now if I go to site, and I say, oh, it's going to say links site-wide. So it's going to look at the whole thing. So it's not going to help me. I was thinking that I was going to do it for just a document. Okay. So it is still going to find, I misspoke. It's still going to find those problems. The other thing we can do, and this is to check compatibility, and I haven't talked about this before. I have briefly mentioned it, but again, if we go to my website here, so if I go to kmart66.com, and we go to Kirk's classes, and we look at handouts, and I have tools over here. We can, if you're interested in being Bobby compliant, you can go through the W3C too. And this gives you pages and pages and pages of rules that govern what are acceptable and appropriate for a website's design. And I guarantee you most people don't look at this. And I'll be the first to admit that I don't. You know, you'll drive yourself nuts. It's like saying, okay, I'm going to go read the telephone book before I design this. It'll drive you nuts. So you have to, be mindful of what you're doing. I think what is helpful is by adding alt tags to everything, especially, as I said, because this class is about developing visually rich a visually rich website, and that means that it will be inaccessible to many people with, seeing who are sight impaired. I don't think many of you are going to have, if you do have sound, that it's that critical for someone to listen to. If it is critical, then it would be an issue. Then maybe if it's important for people with disabilities to have access to it, then you would need, for video subtitles, you would need maybe an alt tag that would take whatever is in the content of that audio and open up a page for them that has all of that text in written form, in HTML. So there's a lot of extra work that you'd have to do. But let's go to Juicy Studio really quick. And you'll notice that here's the background color and here's the foreground color. And you'll see, let me go back to my page here. I'm going to go to Modify, Page Properties, and you'll see that here's my background color and my text color is black. So I'm just going to copy this hexadecimal number. Then I'm going to go back to Juicy Studios, and here's the background color. I'll paste that in there, and the foreground color should be 0. Yeah, it should be 0, 0, 0. So let's calculate luminosity contrast ratio. Okay, and you'll see here's the large text sample, regular text sample, and you'll see that it passes with a AAA rating. That this is good. That there is adequate contrast between the background and my text so that it's readable. Let's go back again and let's change this. Let's change this to a red, for example, or some of you like a deep blue, so that we have that. So let's do the same thing. Let's copy. Let's go back to that page. Whoops, wrong page. Here. Let's paste this one in. So this is the new background color, and let's calculate that. And there it is. It fails. There is an adequate contrast, but how often do you see that? Now, what does that mean when you say contrast? It's stripping away the hue, meaning that if you were to see the blue instead of blue, see it as its equivalent in gray. That would be a dark gray. There isn't enough contrast between that gray, which is what somebody who could be colorblind or even isn't would see in the black text. There isn't enough difference between light and dark. That's all it's looking at, is the difference between lights and darks. Now, there is another website in addition to Juicy Studio which is helpful, and that's all this does. Okay, but if you're not sure and you're not familiar with, you have little design background and are not familiar with, the terms that I'm using, especially when I say value and hue, and the intensity or the luminosity of the color and things like that, and you just need to know, is there adequate contrast between the background color and my text? Is this going to work? Then this is a super website that will help you. The other website that would be helpful is VizCheck. And this is less important, but it is important. And this is for people who are colorblind. And there are different kinds of color blindness. So you can look at examples here. And what it does is it simulates colorblind vision. And I guess this it didn't have before. Daltonized corrects images for colorblind viewers. So what we can do is we can look at some examples here. And you can see that you can do the same thing. You can do it for the web, for a page on the web, or and more importantly, you're going to do it for your own page. So here are some examples, and it shows you this is what you see if you don't have color blindness, and depending on the kind of color blindness that you have, this is what it's going to look like. Is it going to be readable? It's similar to those tests that you're given in grade school with the bubbles. Do you see the 5 in it, or do you see whatever in the middle of it? And if you don't, then you have a particular kind of color blindness. That's all this is doing. There we go. There it is. It's a 3. I misspoke. See, here I see the 3, and here you don't. And this is what the person sees. So you can do that. You can come back here, and we can do the VizCheck, and you can put in a particular page, and you can have it calibrate it, and you can see this is what I'm seeing, this is what somebody with various types of color blindness is going to see. And again, you have to ask yourself, does it matter? You know, the obvious one, the red, green. You know, the red and the green in here changes considerably. That they're almost identical. They change in value, but they still look more yellow than anything else. You know, here are other examples. Now, sometimes for photographs, the photograph is the photograph. There's nothing you can do. But if it pertains to text, and you're using a combination of colors in your text, then I would strongly, you know, recommend that you do make the changes, necessary changes, so that at least there's a contrast in value, lights and darks, that they will see it. They may not see the color that you intend them to see, but they will see the text based on the degree of lightness or darkness. And a good example of two colors that are complements to one another, that are about the same value, that look identical, are red and green. An intense red and intense green. Think of street lights. The only reason people who are colorblind know that there is a difference is by the position and the intensity of the light. They don't, you know, they can't tell the difference between the red and the green. It looks the same. That's why if you were to put a red dot on a green background, or vice versa, and print it on a copy, you know, a grayscale or black, you know, copier, I want to say Xerox copy or whatever, it would come out all the same. It would just come out, you know, if they were identical in value, it would just come out the same. It wouldn't distinguish one from the other. So those are, you know, in addition to making your site visible, literally, to people who are doing searches, now we have another thing to deal with, accessibility. And we talked about that at the very beginning of web design, is that you have to know who your target audience is. And that, from the onset, determines how you design. It determines, you know, from, you know, the content to the colors you use, to the degree in which you use images, to flash, to the size of this page, and on and on and on. You know, if you want it to be accessible to everybody, and I mean everybody, then you really need to simplify a lot. If you're less concerned, you know, there's a specific audience that you want to target, you want to have the flash, and you want to have the sound, and you want to have, you know, something that's graphically rich, then you're going to just, by nature, you're going to eliminate a large number of people. A large number of people. And that's okay. You know, especially if you're a graphic designer, or you're an illustrator, or you're an artist. If someone is blind, it's unlikely they're going to be a client of yours. You know, I mean, you're targeting a very narrow audience. And the same applies to maybe the size of your page. If you're really within that group, you're just targeting art directors, you could probably do a page that's much larger than 800 by 600. You still may need to be careful, because a lot of people, you know, more and more people are relying on laptops. You know, but then still, if you want an online presence and you want to make sure that clients can see your portfolio and see the images, you know, that you're displaying, not only in, you know, like on my website is a little bit larger than thumbnail, but really for an art director, they would want to see them fairly large. You know, it's inadequate for that purpose. So maybe you have a separate set that click and open up in a pop-up or something like that. It hasn't been an issue for me for a while, you know, that I need to reach those people, but I realize that that's a shortcoming on my website. So those are things that you would need to take into consideration and factor in. Okay, those little things help. Anything else you want me to review? If not, I'll turn on, yeah.
I have a question. You know how last Tuesday you showed us how to do the pop-up window?
Mm-hmm.
How do you a button that'll bring in a Flash document?
You would, it has to be put in an HTML. It will be the same thing. You want to put it in a pop-up?
Not in a pop-up.
No.
Load into the actual window. Into just like a.
Meaning when you click on a button, it loads, it puts it in there. I'm trying to think of what it would look like. That you, where would it be placed? I mean, you have to have a place for it.
Yeah, it would be inside of like a.
The only thing I could think of is that you have to use an AP div. So it would be located in a separate layer. And there are ways of that I haven't showed you of making a layer invisible, and then with buttons you click on it and it makes the layer visible, and then you click on it again and it makes it invisible. And that's done the other day when I covered what did I cover? Hold on. Boy, my memory's going right now. Let me go back to Dreamweaver. Behaviors. It's under behaviors. So we're going to go down here to look at behaviors and click here. I don't have anything selected, so let's look down here. There are more behaviors. Jump menu, jump to. It's. I'm going to have to look that up for next time. It's been so long since I've done that because it's not in what isn't intuitive to people. It was my experience that once they click on it and make the layer visible, or the AP div visible, it's not intuitive for them to go back and to click on that button again to make it invisible. Does that make sense? That's why opening it up in another window might be a better way to go. And then they can just click to close the window. That's, so again, it's one of those things, you know, when you don't use something for a long time, it just goes out of your, you know, you tend to forget, but that's what it is. So if that's something that you really want to do, let me look that up and try it again and create a button that when you click on it, it would be on click, would reveal that AP div, and then when it's visible, it also swaps the button out for another button, and then when you click on that button, it hides the div. Then it would remain fixed because AP divs are fixed, so that makes it awkward. It's okay. Okay. So yeah, again, a lot of logistics. You know, a lot of things you have to think about. Well, if I do this and that doesn't work. If I try this and so which way will work best for you? Is it the slideshow or something, or is it?
But I have this two buttons to load two different slideshows.
Okay.
But maybe I can
Well, you know, what you're suggesting is that if you have 3 separate slideshows, it's almost like a website. And each of those slideshows could be contained either in Flash in a different scene. They could also, you could have on one Flash project, you could have it load each of the separate .swfs in a window. So that would be another alternative, so that they only open the one, and then you have a choice. Do you want to see slideshow 1, 2, or 3? And when they click on that, it's loading an SWF file in there. And it's done the same way when we did those external that external slideshow. It would be no different than having it specify and saying this is so-and-so JPEG, so-and-so .swf. The thing is, all 3 slideshows have to be the same size. You know, same format. They are going to load in that same window, that same container. Okay. Correct. So, I mean, go back to that slideshow where you're loading images and substitute, just create a blank SWF file. I mean, something with some text that says this is slideshow 1. Doesn't have any slides in it, but it's slideshow 1. And then create another SWF slideshow 2. And then, you know, just as long as it sees that file name, that's what it's looking for. So that would be a choice. That makes it more compact. That's one way to do it. The other way, as I said, is that you have one slideshow, and it's done in a similar fashion, is that if it's completely self-contained, all of the slideshows, that each one would be in a different scene, and when you click on a button, all it's doing is say go to and stop or go to and play on this particular scene. And it's like targeting and jumping different. It's no different than jumping around on different frames. You're just jumping to a different scene. You know, it could be scene 2, frame 5, or something like that.
You use the behaviors to do that, right? From the button to load the external SWF file.
I have to go back and look at the action script that we added for that.
I'll try it.
Okay. Use the template that we had. It's available. It's available from my website, or from here rather, this computer, and try it out. Okay. Anybody see the faculty show? No? What'd you think? Have you seen previous faculty shows? Oh, you like it? Thank you. Do you understand what I was doing? No. Okay. I meant it to be ambiguous. I mean, that was intentional. It's Untitled, and then parentheses Kirk Miller. So if you look at the format, it is a portrait format, vertical. And the name, that's me. So it is a portrait of me, but it's using my name. But when you think about it, I did a vanity search on Google of Kirk Miller. And I chose to see all of the images associated with the keyword Kirk Miller. And those are all of the Kirk Miller searches. So it obviously is more of a generic Kirk Miller, that you see all the associations with Kirk Miller, that it's not me, the individual, but it's all the Kirk Millers who have a presence on the web. It would be nice to see it to take on, remember the photosynth video that I showed you, that with a flicker, where you have this compilation of, it's kind of a gestalt where you get a sense of everybody's view of the Grand Canyon who's placed images on there. It's the same sense as that. I mean, I did this before I found that photosynth, and I think that it would be nice to have a broader approach, that if I had also put in digital images of other Kirk Millers that don't have a presence on the web, or incorporate. I mean, I could have gone in Flickr and type in Kirk Miller and see what comes up there. I mean, there's all kinds of resources, but to have all of that. But this is just the basic, here's a Google search of it, and what does that entail? It's not only, as you may have seen, that there is, Kirk Miller certainly embodies the name, so there's a signature. that's associated with the name, and you saw in a couple of instances there was a signature of Kirk and one of Miller, and not mine, somebody else's. And that you think of that is individual and personal. You also associate, we tend to associate the name with someone's work too. And that really becomes visible too, because a lot of the images, if you're wondering why Michael Moore is in there and some others, is because there is a writer. And the keywords Kirk Miller come up in association with his articles about those people. And there are a couple of instances where I am in there, but they're images that I used on my blog. So it's about things that I have written that are now associated with me and my name. So, and the reason for the curtain, because I happened upon it by chance, but I will be the first to admit that, but I like the idea of having a format that's flexible, of indeterminate length. Now, if I were to, and what I really like to do is because Andy Warhol was known for his portraits. And portraits in the history of art have kind of taken up until Andy, well, even through Andy Warhol, but there's Chuck Close and a number of people. In the hierarchy of importance in art history, or take a lower, fairly low in status. But with certain artists like Andy Warhol, he's known for that. Chairman Mao, of a number of really important individuals, of Marilyn Monroe and Elvis Presley, and on and on and on. But to do someone as prominent as Andy Warhol, or all of the portraits that he did, do Marilyn Monroe, type in that and all the keywords, all the images that are associated with her. And you don't find any other Marilyn Monroes. There might be a few people who have been named Marilyn Monroe who have a presence on the web. But it's interesting to find, again, the other associations, that films that she was in, people with whom she associated, and stuff like that, where you do get this overview, this gestalt of Marilyn Monroe, and it brings back a flood of memories or a sense of who this person is, rather than an individual picture. And I did that for Andy Warhol, and it's interesting to see how much more he's associated with his work, on his presence on the web, than just seeing a picture of that person. You think of, I know, Bob Ramirez. You think of the picture of him, but with Andy Warhol, yeah, you sort of associate his portrait, his picture, but more often than not, you do associate his work. I mean, what comes to mind before you think of Andy Warhol could be his Campbell soup cans or his picture of Marilyn Monroe. You think of that. So I liked, what do you associate with a name? What is in a name? What does that entail? Is it an individual? Is it, in this case, because there are lots of, what if you did Bob Smith? There's got to be a gazillion Bob Smiths in this world. There might be some people where there is nothing, or one, if they don't have a presence on the web. She had to drop the class, but I have lunch with Ann, her name is Ann Campos. Her maiden name is Ann Zatlukal. There aren't many Zatlukals in the world, at least in the United States, So when you do a search for her, nothing comes up. So that would be kind of interesting too, where you'd have this blank canvas, but for someone like Andy Warhol, you would have, or Marilyn Monroe, you would have something that might trail, or be an indeterminate length that you'd have to pull up and down to see the whole thing, which would be pretty cool. So that's what I liked about that.
I think they should have the artist at the exposition, so they can kind of explain the whole story behind it.
Right. But in some cases, like I've done these silly donut pieces. Okay, I put it up in another. It was another show in South Pasadena, and people look at it and they're amused by them, or they're like, what the heck is this? Or they look at, oh, that's kind of neat. And there's something about the concept of nothing that intrigues me, or in the zero, or the image of a donut that's associated with that. But another way to think about it, or that I like thinking about it, into making those pieces in particular ambiguous, is think of them like a flower, that when you walk along and you see a rose, or you see a beautiful flower that maybe you don't know what its name is or something, you just go, oh, that's interesting, that's kind of neat, and you're visually exposed to it and taken by it, and you're, you know, for that you have that moment, and then you go on. And that's how I take those. They can be that with I mean, you can see zero or nothing as a negative. You can also see it as a beginning, is that there are infinite possibilities. And that's what I see in those donuts. That it, yeah, you could see it as a negation, as death, as nothing, as a void, as an absence. But I also see it, more importantly, as a potential for anything. And so that's why I like the idea of doing them and applying different textures to them. And you kind of anthropomorphize some of them, applying skin as a texture, or fur, where you have these associations. Some of them could be sexual, some of them could be, I don't know, just kind of weird. I mean, some of them that I've done that look like viruses or all kinds of weird things, you know. I mean, some of them look pretty strange, or associated with food, or associated. Well, I've done probably a half dozen, but my goal is to do 13, so you have a baker's dozen, and then not do any more. So that would be the show. So that was the idea behind the Kirk Miller, the portrait. Yeah. So.